It started with the transmission. A flickering image, distorted by the static of deep space, played out on every screen in the Sol Alliance war room. The gathered men, fleet admirals, planetary governors, battle-hardened generals, stood in dead silence. Some gritted their teeth. Others clenched their fists. No one spoke. On the screen, the Jarkai High Regent addressed the council with thinly veiled contempt. His voice, cold and dripping with superiority, echoed across the chamber. "This is your final warning, humans. Surrender the colonies in the Vega sector or face the consequences. Your kind is fragile, emotional, unfit to govern the stars." Then came the footage. A human transport ship, a civilian carrier, caught in orbit over Vega 3. No weapons, no escort, hundreds of families on board. The screen flickered again, then stabilized long enough to show what happened next. Jarkai warships surrounding the helpless craft, unleashing a barrage of plasma fire. The ship exploded in a silent bloom of light. Thousands of lives, men, women, children, vaporized in seconds. General Marcus Driven, standing at the center of the room, didn't flinch. His scarred face remained unreadable, but something in his eyes shifted. A cold, hard glint. He was a man who had seen wars, lost comrades, and buried regrets deeper than most could fathom. But this was different. He spoke first. "How many on that transport?" His voice was low, gravel rough. 1,700 civilians, came the reply from Admiral Harlan. "Mostly settlers, families evacuating the Vega front." Silence followed. No one needed to state what everyone knew. This was an act of terror, not a tactical strike, not a battle. Pure, calculated slaughter. For years, humanity had tried restraint, negotiations, diplomacy, carefully measured responses. They had endured slights, endured skirmishes, always hoping to avoid a full-scale war with the Jarkai Dominion. But today, the hope ended. Marcus turned to the council. His gaze swept across hardened faces, men who had grown tired of compromise. "They think we are weak because we hold back," Marcus said, voice cold as iron. "They mistake restraint for cowardice. That ends now." He looked at Admiral Harlan. "Mobilize the 3rd and 5th fleets. Full battle readiness. No quarter." Harlan hesitated. "General, if we do this, then no species in this galaxy will ever forget what happens when human resolve turns to fury." A grim nod followed. Orders rippled out. Warships prepared to jump. Old battle flags, flags many had thought would never fly again, were brought out of deep storage. In the corridors of Earth's great orbital shipyards, engineers worked in frenzied silence. Soldiers gathered in the hangars, strapping into exo-armor, checking weapons. Across human space, the call went out to every combat veteran. "Report, the war is no longer cold." Marcus sat alone in his quarters as the fleet prepared to jump. Before him lay a simple hollow frame, a picture of his brother's family. His brother, his wife, 2 small children. They had been on that transport. He didn't weep. He didn't scream. He simply placed the frame face down and rose to his feet. The comms pinged. "General Draven, the fleet is ready for your command." He stepped onto the command deck, voice calm but resolute. "Execute jump to Vega sector. Engage all enemy targets. No survivors." As the stars stretched and the jump began, a single thought burned in every human warrior's mind. They wanted war. Now they will choke on it. The stars twisted back into place as the fleet tore through the void and emerged above Vega 3. Marcus Draven stood at the center of the Revenant's Bridge, flagship of the 5th Fleet. Towering, battle-worn, the ship's hull still bore the scars of past conflicts. Its guns were ancient in design but brutally effective, upgraded with every war humanity had survived. This was no diplomatic vessel. This was a predator, On the holomap before Marcus, the enemy formation blinked into view. 12 Jarkai warships, 4 carriers, 16 planetary defense stations. And the bastards who had murdered 1,700 human civilians were still in orbit, gloating. Admiral Harlan's voice crackled through the command channel. "General, enemy forces locking weapons." Marcus's jaw clenched. His hands rested calmly behind his back. He stared at the cold digital symbols representing the enemy ships, symbols that meant nothing compared to the lives they had erased. "Transmit this to all captains," Marcus said. His voice cut through the bridge, flat and absolute. "Rules of engagement, none. Target warships, stations, ground batteries, leave no survivors." A young lieutenant, eyes wide but voice steady, replied, "Yes, sir." Message transmitted fleet-wide. A heavy silence settled over the bridge, broken only by the hum of weapon systems charging. The crew, veterans all, needed no further speeches. They knew why they were here. Marcus allowed himself a brief moment to look out across the stars. Vega, 3 hanging below them like a poisoned jewel. He thought of the colonists, his brother's children, his own comrades who had warned, too many times, that the Jarkai saw human compassion as weakness. Never again. "Fire," he ordered. The first salvo ripped through the blackness. Railgun slugs traveling at a fraction below light speed, plasma lances shearing through shields, missiles too fast to evade, too smart to jam. The nearest Jarkai destroyer took the brunt, a sleek, arrogant thing of alien design, its silver hull shimmering in the starlight. It lasted all of 6 seconds before its reactors imploded, sending shards of molten metal into the enemy formation. From every human warship, fire erupted in waves. Where once humanity had held back, today there was only cold, merciless precision. And the Jarkai were not ready. The Dominion's fleets had grown used to human restraint, expecting careful targeting, diplomatic hesitation, retreat. They had not prepared for this raw, unchained onslaught. Enemy shields collapsed, hulls burned, stations fell silent as boarding teams cut through corridors with monoblades and breaching charges. Marcus's voice echoed on the boarding channels. No prisoners, no broadcasts, no surrender. Across the shattered remains of Defense Station Theta, Captain Anders led the breach. A veteran of the Orion Rebellion, Anders was the kind of man the Jarkai had feared for decades, a human who had learned to fight dirty and live through it. He moved fast through blood-slick corridors, his squad in tight formation. Pulse rifles barked, cutting down fleeing enemy crew. Anders barely glanced at the alien bodies falling before him. "Clear the core chamber," he ordered. They blew the doors. Inside, a squad of Jarkai warriors awaited, a proud caste bred for close combat. Tall, four-armed, armored in ceremonial carapace. Anders grinned beneath his helmet. "Let's see what your honor's worth today." The fight was savage, no quarter. Blades clashed against rifle butts, plasma scorched flesh. Anders drove a combat knife into the throat of the nearest warrior, twisting until the alien's lifeblood poured across the deck. When it was over, Anders stood alone amid the wreckage, panting. His men picked through the remains. One Marine spat on the floor. "They thought they could slaughter our families and walk away." Anders keyed his comm. "Core secured. Sabotaging reactors now." Back on the Revenant, Marcus watched as one enemy symbol after another winked out on the holomap. Admiral Harlan spoke grimly. "Jarkai forces in full retreat, remaining ships breaking orbit." Marcus's eyes narrowed. "Pursue. No one escapes." "Sir," Harlan asked carefully, "should we not leave at least one to carry a message?" Marcus's reply was ice cold. "The message will be their silence, their absence. Let the galaxy learn by the smoke we leave behind." Harlan nodded grimly. "Aye, General." Down below, Vega 3's planetary capital burned. Human special forces had landed under heavy bombardment, seizing the Jarkai command complex. Streets ran with blood. The banners of the Dominion were torn down, trampled beneath human boots. In the central plaza, Marcus himself led the final assault. He walked through the shattered gates of the High Regent's palace, flanked by grim-faced Marines. His armor was scarred, his weapons smoked. At the center of the throne room, the Jarkai Regent awaited. A towering reptilian figure clad in ceremonial robes, once so regal, now trembling. You dare violate sacred grounds! Marcus shot him mid-sentence. No speeches, no trial. Your kind violated far worse, he muttered. He turned to his men. Burn this place to the ground. The purge lasted days. Every Dominion garrison on Vega 3 was wiped out. No prisoners. The human fleet scoured the orbital belts, hunting escape pods. By the end of the fourth day, no Jarkai vessel remained. Across human space, word spread like wildfire. They burned Vega 3. No survivors. Humanity has finally unleashed its fury. In Dominion space, panic rippled through the ranks of the once arrogant Jarkai military. Governors recalled fleets. Commanders demanded reinforcements. For the first time in centuries, the predators of the galaxy tasted fear. Marcus stood alone in the ruins of the palace as dawn broke over the shattered city. The air stank of ash and blood. Fires still smoldered in the distance. From a battered comm unit, a transmission crackled in, an intercepted message from the surviving Dominion Council. Human retaliation was beyond calculation. Recommend immediate ceasefire talks. Humans no longer behave within expected parameters. Marcus allowed himself a bitter smile. Good, he murmured. Let them learn. Behind him, Captain Anders approached, helmet tucked under one arm. His face was smeared with grime and sweat. It's done, sir. Total purge confirmed. No more broadcasts. No more Dominion in this sector. Marcus gave a single nod. Then we move to the next, he said simply. And the next after that, until they remember. Anders hesitated. Sir, some in the council back home might want us to stop here. Negotiate. Marcus's gaze turned cold. Let them send their diplomats. I'm sending a message the entire galaxy will understand. No species will ever forget what happens when human resolve turns to fury. And so the war spread. Human fleets drove into Jarkai space with unstoppable momentum. Colonies once considered untouchable burned. Outposts were left in ruins. For every human life taken at Vega 3, 100 Jarkai paid the price. The old doctrines were cast aside. Humanity no longer fought to contain. They fought to punish. And everywhere they went, one name echoed through the stars. Marcus Draven, the man who had unleashed humanity's fury. The War Council met aboard the Revenant, deep in orbit over the charred remains of Vega 3. The holotable flickered to life, projecting a crimson map of Jarkai space. Sectors, colonies, military hubs. Once a web of strength. Now bleeding from every edge. Marcus Draven stood at the head of the table, armor still dusted with ash from the palace purge. His face was carved from stone, eyes sharp with exhaustion and cold fury. Around him sat the commanders of humanity's war machine. Men forged in the blood of the Orion Rebellion, the Titan Uprising, the Vorn conflict. Veterans, killers, the type of men politicians feared when wars ran too long. Admiral Harlan opened the session. We have full control of Vega Sector, he reported. No surviving Dominion units. Civilian transports intercepted. Evacuations terminated. Next targets, gentlemen? Captain Anders spoke up, voice grim. We have a clean vector to the Author Belt. 3 major shipyards, 6 population centers, a key logistics hub for Dominion operations. The holomap adjusted. A new region blinked red. Marcus nodded. We hit the Author Belt next. No warning, full burn. One of the younger fleet commanders hesitated. General, political chatter back home is growing louder. Council members are calling for ceasefire negotiations. Marcus's gaze snapped to him like a blade. Negotiations? After Vega 3? His voice was a low growl. The Council wasn't on that transport. They didn't have to scrub their children's names from a casualty list. The room fell silent. Marcus leaned forward. Let me make this clear. Until I receive direct orders from Earth High Command, this war proceeds at my discretion. We are not here to placate politicians. We are here to end a threat. No one challenged him further. The Revenant led the charge. 10 days later, the combined 3rd and 5th Fleets burst into the Author Belt like wolves through a slaughterhouse. Dominion forces scrambled, caught mid-supply. Their arrogance was gone. No more taunting broadcasts, no ritual challenges. Only desperation. Marcus watched the battle unfold from the command deck. Railguns pounded the enemy. Boarding teams cut through the shipyards. Civilians fled. Marcus had ordered strict targeting to prioritize military and logistics hubs. But Dominion forces hid among their own people, forcing humanity's hand. The decision wasn't hard. Burn it all, Marcus ordered. The Author shipyards fell within hours, burning wreckage tumbling through asteroid fields. Human Marines stormed planetary bunkers, leaving no garrison intact. It wasn't war anymore. It was retribution. After the fall of Author, the ripple effect was immediate. Dozens of Dominion outposts abandoned their posts. Jarkai governors sent frantic messages to their high command. Humanity no longer fights as predicted. Entire fleets annihilated. No quarter given. Civilian morale collapsing. Recommend immediate reinforcement or full retreat. Jarkai High Command, paralyzed by centuries of bureaucratic arrogance, stalled. Their species had always relied on psychological dominance, on making their enemies fear them. They had no doctrine for dealing with an enemy who no longer cared about casualties, only vengeance. The galaxy took notice. Human allies, once wary of escalating conflict, now sent offers of covert support. Mercenary groups defected. Even rival species who had feared humanity's rise began to whisper, "Perhaps it is better to stand beside them than in their path." Word reached Earth. The council chambers buzzed with debate. Politicians railed against Marcus's methods. Public opinion teetered, some horrified by the brutality, others cheering for the first true human reckoning in generations. But no order came to stop the war. High Command, veterans themselves, knew the truth. The galaxy had to learn, and only fire would teach them. Marcus received the encoded message from his former mentor, General Kane. A man too old to fight now, but whose words still carried weight. "They may scream back home," Kane's message read. "Ignore them. Finish what you've begun. The galaxy must fear us again." Marcus read the message in silence, then keyed the fleet-wide comm. "Prepare for next strike. We move on the inner Dominion worlds." The assault on the Inner Rim was a different kind of war. Here, the Dominion's elite forces waited. The best ships, the most disciplined warriors. The old families of the Jarkai caste system, those who had looked down on humanity for centuries, had taken personal command. Marcus knew they would fight to the last. He was counting on it. "When they refuse to break," he told his commanders, "we'll grind them down. No mercy. No retreat. This is where we carve the lesson into their bones." The inner campaign was brutal beyond imagining. Human losses climbed. Whole regiments died taking fortress worlds. Boarding parties fought meter by meter through labyrinthine stations. Jarkai warriors, desperate now, used civilians as shields, triggered suicide bombs, poisoned their own cities rather than surrender. And humanity answered with fire and steel. Marcus was everywhere, landing with frontline units, directing orbital bombardments, standing amid the ashes as cities burned. On the world of Kartal, a bastion of Jarkai nobility, he led the final assault himself. The palace was a towering spire of obsidian, ringed by shield walls. The defenders fought with fanatic fury. Marcus's unit broke through after 7 days of siege. Inside, amid the shattered remains of their ancestral hall, Marcus found the ruling matriarch of the Kartal line, a withered but proud figure. She spat at him. "You are monsters!" she hissed in her guttural tongue. "You slaughter without honor, without restraint. You shame your species." Marcus raised his rifle. "You slaughtered children at Vega 3, he replied coldly. "This is the consequence of your honor." And then he pulled the trigger. The death toll rose. By the time humanity reached the core Dominion worlds, Jarkai resistance had fractured. Mutinies spread. Border colonies surrendered without a shot. Entire fleets deserted. Fear, real, animal fear, had taken hold. Dominion broadcasts shifted from arrogant proclamations to desperate pleas for peace. Humanity, we acknowledge the errors of the Vega incident. We seek terms for cessation of hostilities. Let reason prevail. Marcus read the message aboard the Revenant, flanked by his grim commanders. He played it twice. Then he spoke. "They seek reason now, after 1,700 lives turned to ash, after centuries of treating us like lesser creatures?" He looked to Admiral Harlan. "Prepare for the siege of their homeworld. No peace until their high command kneels in the dirt." As the Revenant led the final push, Marcus sat alone in his quarters. On the desk before him, the old hollow frame lay face down still. His brother's children, frozen in that last perfect image. Smiling, innocent. He had no illusions left, no hope of restoring what was lost. Fury was all that remained, but it was enough to see the task through. A chime interrupted his thoughts. An encrypted message from Earth High Command. "General Draven, council pressure mounting. Political factions demand ceasefire negotiations. Your continued advance may trigger wider conflict. Be advised, diplomatic observers en route to intercept fleet." Marcus read the words slowly. Then he deleted the message. There would be no turning back. Not now. Not when humanity's fury was finally feared. The jump into Jarkai core space was a gamble, even for Marcus Draven. The Dominion's homeworld, Jarka Prime, lay deep within a tangled network of fortified sectors, gravitational anomalies, and defense grids designed to cripple any invading force. No species in galactic history had ever breached it. But no species had ever faced this humanity. Marcus stood on the bridge of the Revenant as the fleet prepared for the final assault. Around him, grim-faced officers reviewed battle plans, weapon schematics, deep scan reports, 3 million Jarkai troops, 2 planetary shield layers, 4 defense moons armed with antimatter lances, an entire sector fleet defending the system. Marcus's expression never wavered. "How many ships do we have operational?" he asked. 167 capital ships, Admiral Harlan replied. 95% readiness. Ground forces prepped for orbital insertion. Marcus nodded. "Good enough." A tense silence followed. Everyone on the bridge knew what this meant. This was no punitive strike, no raid. This was the knife to the heart of the Dominion. And Marcus intended to drive it in to the hilt. "Transmit to the fleet," he ordered. "We hit Jarka Prime. We don't stop. No terms, no treaties. The galaxy must never forget this day." The fleet surged forward. Jarkai scouts detected them instantly, panic spreading through Dominion channels. Human ECM cut through the noise, jamming their comms, feeding false signals. Marcus listened as intercepted broadcasts came through, voices strained with fear. Humanity. Here. Impossible. Shields to full. All batteries active. Where is High Command? We are unprepared. The Revenant's massive engines roared as the fleet closed the distance. Open fire, Marcus commanded. The opening salvo was cataclysmic. Dozens of Dominion cruisers shattered under the barrage, railgun slugs piercing their hulls, plasma torpedoes burning through armor. The defense moons retaliated, antimatter lances gouging space itself. The human fleet suffered losses. Ships burst apart in brief, brilliant deaths. Men and women died screaming in the void. But they kept coming. And for every human ship lost, 3 Jarkai vessels burned. In the chaos of battle, Marcus remained a cold center of gravity. He moved between command stations, coordinating strikes, ordering boarding actions, exploiting every weakness. He fought like a man with nothing left to lose, and in truth, he didn't. Push to inner orbit, he ordered. Ground forces, prepare drop. Even as human ships burned around them, the order stood. They would take Jarka Prime, or die on its soil. Captain Anders led the first wave. His gunship shuddered as it punched through atmospheric defenses, flak rattling the hull. Around him, rows of grim-faced Marines braced for impact. Listen up, Anders barked. You all know why we're here. The bastards thought they could slaughter us like cattle. We're here to remind them what it costs to provoke humanity. The gunship landed hard, its ramp dropping into a storm of gunfire. Anders charged forward. The landing zones were hellscapes, craters, burning wreckage, shattered buildings. Jarkai infantry fought with fanatic determination, unwilling to surrender their homeworld. But humanity fought harder. Anders moved like a predator through the chaos, pulse rifle barking, blade flashing. His men followed, cutting down defenders, seizing bunkers, planting charges. Sector Alpha cleared, Anders reported an hour later, armor streaked with blood, pushing toward Palace District. Above, the fleet still raged. Marcus paced the Revenant's bridge, watching as Jarkai reinforcements poured into the battle and died by the thousands. Admiral Harlan, he said, target the planetary shield generators. Full bombardment. I want those shields down now. Aye, General. The Revenant's main batteries opened fire, joined by the entire fleet. Orbital strikes hammered the surface, columns of flame erupting where shield nodes failed. Piece by piece, the protective layers crumbled. And then, on the 6th hour of the assault, the last shield fell. Ground to orbit clear, Harlan reported. We can strike the capital directly. Marcus's eyes gleamed coldly. Then we finish this. The march on the palace was a slaughter. Anders led the spearhead, his Marines carving through entrenched defenders, flamers sweeping bunkers, demolition charges toppling defensive walls. The Jarkai command complex loomed ahead, massive, spiked towers wrapped in black metal, once a symbol of dominance, now a final tomb. No survivors, Anders ordered. We clear this place room by room. Marcus himself landed with the final wave. He strode through the blasted streets of the capital, gun in hand, flanked by elite guard units. His armor bore fresh scars. His eyes burned with unrelenting purpose. Inside the palace, resistance collapsed. Jarkai officers fled. Servants cowered. No escape pods remained. Marcus led the charge into the high command chamber. A dozen Dominion lords awaited, cloaked in gold, desperate, proud even in defeat. General Draven, one spat. You defile this place. You disgrace yourself. Marcus shot him mid-sentence. Your disgrace was sealed at Vega 3, he said flatly. He turned to his men. Take the rest. Public executions. Let the galaxy watch. The executions were broadcast system-wide. Dominion worlds, once proud and unyielding, watched in horror as their rulers fell one by one to human rifles. No speeches, no mercy, only the raw, undeniable truth. Humanity had come for vengeance, and they would not be denied. Afterward, Marcus stood amid the ruins of the palace. The human flag now flew over its shattered spires. Smoke drifted through the air. The once mighty halls of the Jarkai Empire lay broken beneath his feet. Captain Anders approached, bloodied but unbowed. "It's done, sir," he reported. "We hold the capital. No further resistance." Marcus stared into the distance. "Not done yet," he said quietly. "We hold this world. We show the galaxy what happens when you provoke humanity. Let them all remember." Even as the last shots faded, the message spread. Across the stars, species watched in shock and fear. The great dominion had fallen. Humanity, once dismissed as a young, fragile race, had shattered an empire with sheer, unrelenting fury, and every surviving race now knew one truth. No species would ever forget the moment human resolve turned to fury. But Marcus Draven wasn't finished. In his private chambers aboard the Revenant, a new map flickered to life. Other threats, other species who had once mocked humanity. "Prepare new targets," he ordered grimly. "The galaxy will learn." And deep in his soul, beneath the cold layers of command, a single thought burned. There would be no forgiveness, no peace. Not now, not ever. The galaxy trembled in the wake of Jarka Prime's fall. Across every known sector, news of the slaughter spread like wildfire. Holofeeds replayed images of burning cities, shattered fleets, and the executions of the Dominion's rulers. Billions watched in silent horror. Humanity was no longer the young, fragile race of old. They had shown the stars what human fury truly meant. But for General Marcus Draven, it wasn't enough. He stood alone in his quarters aboard the Revenant, the scars of war etched deep into his face. His armor hung on a rack nearby, stained with ash and blood. On the desk before him, the old holoframe still lay face down. The faces of his brother's children, the ones the Jarkai had burned alive, haunted him still. A chime broke the silence. Admiral Harlan entered, grim as always. "Report," Marcus said without turning. "The Dominion remnants are in full retreat," Harlan replied. "Multiple outer colonies declaring independence, internal rebellion spreading, other species watching closely." Marcus finally turned. "Watching," he echoed. His voice was cold steel. "Let them watch. They need to understand. This is only the beginning." Harlan hesitated. "There's more. Council envoys arrived at the edge of Jarkai space. They're demanding to meet with you. Official orders." Marcus's jaw tightened. "Damn politicians," he muttered. "They sent diplomats after 1,700 civilians burned. Let them rot." Harlan lowered his voice. "They'll try to force a ceasefire. Too many are afraid we've gone too far." Marcus's eyes burned with fury. "We haven't gone far enough." Despite his contempt, Marcus agreed to meet the envoys. Not out of respect, but to make sure they understood the truth. The meeting was held aboard the Revenant. A sterile, cold conference room. No banners, no pleasantries. 3 envoys arrived. Soft-handed bureaucrats in polished uniforms. Men who had never seen a battlefield. Marcus entered wearing his combat gear, scarred and imposing. He didn't sit. "Speak," he said flatly. Envoy Grant, a pale man with trembling hands, cleared his throat. "General Draven," he began, "we recognize your effectiveness. The Council believes the primary objectives have been achieved. The Dominion is broken. We urge an immediate cessation of hostilities to avoid destabilizing the galactic order." Marcus stepped forward, voice low and lethal. "You weren't there at Vega 3, he said. "You didn't smell the burning hulls. You didn't watch the bodies drift through space." The envoys exchanged nervous glances. "General," Grant began again. Marcus cut him off. "You have no authority here," he growled. "This fleet answers to me, and we will not stop until every species in this galaxy understands the price of spilling human blood." His words left no room for argument. The envoys left in silence. Later that night, Marcus met with Captain Anders in the war room. The holomap flickered to life, highlighting new sectors. "The galaxy thinks we'll stop here," Marcus said. "They're wrong." He pointed to a region marked in red. The Thalith Combine. They backed the Dominion, supplied weapons, intel, mercenaries. Anders nodded grimly. "They thought they'd profit from our war. Let's show them what that costs." Marcus's gaze hardened. "Prepare the fleet. We strike within the week." The campaign against the Thalith was brutal in a new way. The Thalith weren't warriors. They were merchants, manipulators, species who had long thrived on playing others against each other. But Marcus wasn't interested in politics. He brought fire. Human fleets dropped into Thalith space without warning. No declarations, no ultimatums. Orbital stations were pounded into dust. Shipyards burned. Trade convoys were hunted down and annihilated. Marcus issued a simple message to all Thalith systems. "You armed the Dominion. You profited from our dead. Now you will pay." On the industrial world of Kethar 9, Marcus led the assault personally. The planet's rulers had believed their wealth and neutrality would protect them. They were wrong. Marcus's dropship landed amid the heart of the capital, a towering sprawl of spires and commerce hubs. Resistance was minimal. The Thalith were not soldiers. Their guards surrendered quickly. Their leaders begged for negotiations. Marcus gave none. "Level the trade hubs," he ordered. "Seize their treasuries. Let every vulture in this galaxy know profiting from humanity's pain is a death sentence." The city burned. The Revenant's war record grew bloodier with each passing week. Thalith colonies fell like dominoes. Trade routes collapsed. Allied mercenary factions fled or surrendered. And still Marcus pressed on. "We will carve this lesson deep," he told his commanders. "Not just for today, for generations." But not all voices were silent. On Earth, the Council's fear grew. Holobroadcasts showed images of burning Thalith worlds, civilian deaths, economic ruin. Protests erupted in the core worlds, soft-hearted fools who had forgotten the face of war. "Humanity must show mercy," they cried. "We risk becoming monsters." Marcus ignored them. He had seen what mercy earned. It earned dead children, empty cradles, ashes drifting through space. "We fight until the galaxy fears us again," he told Admiral Harlan, "or we fight until there's nothing left of us." Then came a new message. Intercepted deep space transmission, encrypted, frantic. "Unknown fleet mobilizing. Unknown species. Unaligned. Possible coalition forming in response to human aggression." Marcus read the report with cold interest. "Let them come," he said. "We've bled, we've burned, we've survived worse." But deep down, he knew this war was no longer just about the Dominion. No longer just about Vega 3. Humanity had become the storm, and storms drew enemies. Late that night, alone once more, Marcus unlocked the old hollow frame. For the first time in months, he let the image flicker to life. His brother's children smiled at him, forever frozen in innocence. He traced the edge of the frame with scarred fingers. "It's not over," he whispered. "Not until they all learn. Not until your deaths are remembered in every corner of this cursed galaxy." He shut the frame off and prepared for the next war. The stars beyond Jarkai space were darker now. Whispers spread across the galaxy like ripples through deep water. The fall of the Dominion. The annihilation of the Thalith Combine. A single human fleet driving across sectors like an unstoppable spear. The other races watched, weighed their options, feared the storm they had helped create. And now they moved. Deep within Revenant's war room, Marcus Draven stood before the tactical display. The map shimmered red with new threats. "Confirmed intel," Admiral Harlan reported grimly. "A coalition is forming. Multiple species, former Dominion allies, peripheral powers, even neutral empires are sending ships." "Names," Marcus demanded. Harlan keyed the map. "The Drekthar clans, the Valen Syndicate, Korathi mercenary houses, a handful of splinter Jarkai factions, roughly 300 warships and counting, mobilizing here." A new sector lit up. Hesker Expanse, a no-man's land of ancient battlefields and lawless space. Marcus's jaw clenched. "They think we'll hesitate," he said coldly. "They think we'll back down in the face of numbers." He turned to his officers. "They're wrong." Within hours, the order went out. "Prepare for assault. Hesker Expanse. No quarter, no retreat." Across the fleet, human crews readied for war. Veterans polished their weapons in grim silence. Engineers worked through the night to patch hull breaches and reload torpedo bays. They all knew what lay ahead. This wouldn't be another slaughter of arrogant Dominion nobles. This would be a true war, the most dangerous kind. A cornered enemy. An enemy with nowhere to run. Marcus walked the decks of the Revenant as preparations continued. Every soldier he passed stood straighter, eyes hard with respect, and something darker. Revenge, fury, loyalty to a man who had refused to bow, even when politicians begged him to stop. "Sir," Captain Anders said, falling into step beside him. "Fleet's at 79%. Some of the older ships are running hot." "They'll hold," Marcus replied. "If this coalition holds formation, we'll be outnumbered 3-1, Anders warned. Marcus looked him dead in the eye. "Good," he said flatly. "I want the bastards to think they have a chance." Anders smiled grimly. "Understood, sir." The Revenant led the charge into Heskar space. The jump tore through subspace, flinging the human fleet across light years in moments. They emerged into chaos. The coalition fleet waited. Ships of every design and age, clustered like a swarm of predators. The comm channels lit up with warnings, ultimatums. "Human fleet, this is the coalition of sovereign worlds. Your campaign of aggression ends here. Stand down or be destroyed." Marcus stood at the center of his bridge, expression unreadable. "Open channel," he ordered. A moment later, his voice echoed across the void. "This is General Marcus Draven of the Sol Alliance." "You call this aggression? We call it justice. You chose your side when you armed the Dominion, when you stood silent as Vega burned." He leaned forward, voice a growl. "No terms, no surrender. You want war? Come and bleed for it." The battle ignited like a supernova. Coalition ships surged forward, plasma lances and torpedoes slashing through space. Human ships met them head-on. Marcus commanded with ruthless precision. "Target their carriers first. Break their logistics. Gut them." The Revenant's massive guns roared, tearing through enemy shields. Railgun slugs punched holes in dreadnoughts. Missiles found weak points and exploded decks from within. Space became a graveyard. On the flanks, Anders led the vanguard. "Follow me," he barked to his strike group. "Cut through their line, no fear!" His ship, the Warhound, dove through enemy fire, guns blazing. The coalition's mercenary ships, cocky and uncoordinated, crumbled first. The Korathi houses broke ranks as human marines boarded their vessels in brutal close-quarters combat. Anders himself led a boarding action onto a Valen battlecruiser. Pulse rifle in hand, blade strapped to his thigh, he stormed through alien corridors, leaving a trail of bodies in his wake. "No quarter!" he roared to his men. "No prisoners!" Above, Marcus watched as the coalition's formation began to fracture. "Admiral Harlan, press the center. Drive them apart." "Aye, sir." Wave after wave of human fire hammered the enemy. Coalition command ships faltered, outmaneuvered by faster, more disciplined human crews. Even when human ships were lost, They rammed enemy vessels, detonating their cores in suicidal strikes. Marcus didn't flinch. "Whatever it takes," he said coldly. Hours passed. Space was littered with debris. Fires burned across shattered hulls, and still Marcus fought. "Status," he demanded. "Coalition forces collapsing," Harlan reported. "Karathi in full retreat. Valen flagship destroyed. Drekthar leaders refusing to pull back, but their line won't hold." Marcus's eyes narrowed. "Finish them. No survivors." The final hours of the battle were a slaughter. Human boarding parties hunted down coalition survivors. Enemy escape pods were targeted and destroyed. There would be no safe retreat. And when the last enemy ship fell, Marcus stood in the silence of his bridge. No cheers, no celebration, just the cold satisfaction of another threat broken. The message went out. Hesker Expanse cleansed, coalition defeated, humanity remains unbroken. Across the stars, that message carried weight. No species could deny it now. Humanity would not stop. Later, in his quarters, Marcus stared once more at the old holoframe. His brother's children smiled up at him, innocent, forever lost. He traced the edge of the frame with scarred fingers. "Another battle," he whispered. "Another step, but not done. Not yet." A chime interrupted. "Sir," Anders's voice came through. "New intel. Another fleet is massing. A bigger one, more organized. This time, they're serious." Marcus stood. "Good," he said simply. "Let them come." His gaze hardened. "We fight until the stars themselves remember our fury." It was almost dawn aboard the Revenant, though time meant nothing in deep space. Marcus Draven stood alone in the observation bay, a silent figure against the stars. The black void stretched endlessly before him, littered with the wreckage of another dead fleet. He'd barely slept in days. No man could fight this long and not feel it in his bones. But exhaustion was a distant thing now. His purpose burned too bright. The latest reports lay on the table behind him, intel summaries from across human space. Hesker Expanse, cleansed, coalition remnants, destroyed, casualties, high but acceptable. And the final line, new coalition forming. Larger, smarter, unified. Marcus's jaw tightened. "Let them come," he muttered. The briefing room was packed when he arrived. His senior commanders gathered, faces grim and sharp with fatigue. Even the veterans looked worn now. This war had burned through them all. Admiral Harlan opened the meeting. "Confirmed intelligence," he began. "They're calling themselves the Conquered of Free Worlds. Not just Dominion remnants, not just opportunists." He keyed the display. A new map blinked to life, sector after sector highlighted in threat red. The Cathari hegemony, Withari unity, Vorn confederation, smaller species aligning under them, combined fleet projection, over 600 ships. The room went still. Captain Anders let out a low breath. "Bigger than anything we've faced yet." Harlan nodded. "More coordinated, too. They've learned from Hesker. No more mercenary rabble. Proper command structure. War-tested fleets. And they're not coming to defend. They're coming to end us." He looked to Marcus. "Their scouts are probing already. Main fleet projected to mobilize within 2 weeks. Destination, Jarkai space, our foothold." The unspoken truth hung in the air. If they broke through Jarkai space, they'd push straight to Earth. Marcus scanned the map, silent. "How many ships do we have combat ready?" 124 capital ships, Harlan replied. "Auxiliaries bringing us to 150. Reserves at Sol still replenishing losses. We're outnumbered 5-1. "Perfect," Marcus said flatly. The room looked at him. "We'll gut them," he said. "Where they least expect it." He stepped forward, voice cold and sure. We don't wait for them to come to us. We take the fight to them, hard and fast. Hit their logistics. Burn their fuel depots. Kill their momentum before they ever reach Jarkai's space." "A preemptive strike," Anders said, nodding grimly. "Damn right," Marcus replied. "We've fought our war on their terms too long. Now we fight it our way." The decision was made. There would be no retreat, no diplomacy, no ceasefire. The conquered would bleed. And it would bleed first. Preparations moved fast. Fleet engineers worked without rest, patching battle-worn hulls, rigging new torpedo systems. Veteran Marines stripped down and rebuilt their armor, checking every joint, every blade. They'd been fighting since Vega. There was no quit left in them. Across the fleet, one truth bound them all. This was the war to decide everything. In the tactical chamber, Marcus and Anders pored over recon data. "They're massing here," Anders pointed. "Arcanis Reach, a vital nexus of fuel and supply lines. If we hit them fast enough, we cripple their advance." Marcus nodded. "We don't just hit them. We burn everything." He looked Anders dead in the eye. "When the survivors crawl back to their masters, they'll bring one message. Humanity isn't afraid of their damned coalition." When the fleet jumped, it jumped with fury. Through the black of subspace, Revenant led the way, its battered hull still a symbol of human wrath. As they emerged over Arcanis Reach, the enemy was there. Freighters, command ships, early strike groups, unready. Marcus didn't hesitate. Full strike, weapons free, no survivors. The battle began in fire. Human torpedoes ripped through fuel platforms. Railguns shredded enemy cruisers caught mid-refuel. Enemy captains scrambled, shouting panicked orders. But human ships moved like wolves among sheep. Disciplined, brutal, precise. On the Warhound, Anders led the assault wings. "Target the command spires, bring their coordination down." Strike teams punched through, Marines storming vital hubs. Anders himself kicked through a blast door, rifle spitting fire, blade ready for the kill. "No prisoners," he snarled, and the halls of Arcanis ran red. On the Revenant, Marcus directed the slaughter. "Cut their comms, jam escape vectors." "Aye, sir." Enemy ships tried to run. Marcus had already anticipated it. Mine nets deployed. Interdiction fields locked down subspace corridors. One by one, the Coalition's advance fleet burned. By nightfall, Arcanis Reach was ashes. Not a single enemy ship escaped intact. Marcus stood on the observation deck as the fires below flickered in the void. "Message to conquered leadership," he ordered. The comtech looked up. "Ready, sir." Marcus's voice was a cold knife. "You think to stop us. You think to bury us. You send fleets and words and threats. But we are the storm. We are the fury you unleashed at Vega, and we will not stop. Come, bring every ship, every soldier, every coward hiding behind your banners. We will burn you all." End transmission. Later, in the dark of his quarters, Marcus finally sat alone. The holoframe lay before him again. His brother's children smiled up at him, forever frozen in light. "One step closer," he whispered. "One more war. And when it's done, when they all remember, then you'll have justice." The stars waited. The conquered fleet would come, and Marcus would meet them with fire. The stars above Jarkai Prime burned red with engine fire. They were coming. Scouts confirmed it. A massive conquered fleet, the largest coalition of alien forces ever assembled, was closing in. Hundreds of ships, hardened war fleets, veterans of ancient wars, species who had once mocked humanity, now banded together in desperation. And they were coming for Marcus Draven, for his fleet, for everything humanity had carved in blood. On the Revenant's bridge, the War Council met one last time. Admiral Harlan stood grim-faced beside Marcus. "Confirmed reports," he said. 600 warships inbound. Heavy carriers, dreadnoughts, stealth skirmishers. They outnumber us 6-1. He didn't bother saying what everyone knew. This was meant to be the final battle. The conquered would not tolerate another humiliation. Captain Anders leaned forward. "We can still fall back," he said. "Consolidate in Sol space. Buy time." Marcus's gaze was hard as iron. "No retreat," he said. "We stand here, on the graves of the Dominion. Let them come. Let them die." The fleet prepared. Every surviving ship was armed to the teeth. Hull plates welded, reactor cores overcharged, weapons rigged to fire until they melted. Marines stripped down their armor, repaired it by hand. They knew, if this battle failed, there would be no second chance. Across the decks of the Revenant, veterans gathered, silent, grim. And everywhere, a single name passed through the ranks. Draven. 2 days later, the first enemy scouts arrived. Small, fast ships darting through the edges of the system. They didn't return. Marcus had ordered kill on sight. "No warnings," he told his gunners. "No mercy. They want a war. They get it." The storm broke on the 4th day. The conquered fleet surged out of deep space, wave after wave of ships. Their banners filled the void. The comm channels flooded with demands. "Human fleet, stand down. Surrender your commanders. Cease your genocidal campaign." Marcus ordered an open channel. He stood tall on the bridge, scarred, gaunt, but unbroken. "This is General Marcus Draven," he said. "There will be no surrender, no ceasefire. You come to end us, you will choke on our fury. Come then, and die." And the galaxy's greatest battle began. The first enemy wave hit hard. Fast skirmishers, stealth ships, long-range artillery. Human ships answered with blistering fire. The void lit up with railgun trails and plasma lances. On the Warhound, Anders led the vanguard. "Target their flanks," he roared. "Keep moving, hit and fade." His ship danced between enemy salvos, guns blazing. The first hour was a slaughter, on both sides. Dozens of ships died screaming into the void. Men and women burned alive in shattered hulls. The vacuum filled with wreckage and frozen corpses. But the human fleet held. They fought like wolves, vicious, coordinated, unrelenting. Marcus watched from the Revenant's command deck, calling strike patterns, flanking orders, massed artillery volleys. "Push the center," he ordered. "Bleed them. Make them pay for every meter." As the battle dragged into the 3rd hour, the conquered began to break. They had numbers, yes, but they lacked what Marcus's fleet had. Purpose, rage, a reason to fight beyond survival. Humanity had come here to burn their enemies to ash. By hour 6, the battle turned. Human ships, though battered, pressed the attack. Boarding parties launched again and again, fighting deck by deck through enemy carriers. Anders himself led a boarding action on a Vorn dreadnought. Pulse rifle empty, blade in hand, he tore through alien defenders with primal fury. "No surrender!" he roared. "No quarter!" Back on the Revenant, reports flooded in. Enemy center breaking. Cathari flagship down. Ythari command cruiser disabled. Vorn fleets retreating. Marcus's voice was steel. "No escape. Hunt them all." By hour 8, the conquered fleet collapsed. Ships fled in all directions, harried by human warships like hounds after wounded prey. In the blackness of space, the wreckage of the greatest coalition in galactic history drifted. And above Jarkai Prime, Marcus Draven stood victorious. Silence fell across the bridge. Admiral Harlan exhaled slowly. "It's done," he said. "They're broken." But Marcus wasn't smiling. He looked out at the stars, cold and endless. "They'll remember this," he said. "Every species, every ruler, every coward who once mocked us." He turned. "But it's not over." That night, alone in his quarters, Marcus unlocked the old holoframe. His brother's children smiled up at him, unchanged, forever young, forever lost. "It's done," he whispered. "They know now. No species will ever forget." Across the galaxy, the message spread. Humanity had stood alone, and it had triumphed. The stars would remember, and they would fear.